can't buy that kind of publicity. But I wasn't thinking about when my parents drove off to the lot to get in line for piece number 68, the Elf Hotel. And I still wasn't thinking about it when I was drinking my eggnog latte and and willing away the time until I got to go to Noah's. I did notice that my parents were later arriving home than usual. They usually got back from Floppy around lunchtime on the Christmas Eve, and here it was, almost 4 o'clock. I started doing some of the general holiday duties to keep myself busy. I couldn't call Noah. I knew he was busy getting ready for the smorgasbord, so I added some extra ribbon and holly to his presents. I switched on all the power strips that power the Floppy Santa village, setting all the enslaved elves to work. I turned on the Christmas carols. I was just stepping outside to turn on the lights on the front of the house when I saw Sam advancing towards our house with his stormtrooper stride. Sam is our lawyer. And when I saw our lawyer, I mean our neighbor who happens to be an extremely high-powered lawyer in Washington, D.C. Sam is exactly the person you want to take on a huge corporation or to represent you when you're being sued for $1 billion. He is not, however, Mr. Cuddles. I was about to invite him in to try one of my delicious eggnog lattes, but he cut me off. I have some bad news, he said, ushering me into my own house. There's been another incident at the Floppy showroom inside. Come on. I thought he was going to say that my parents had been killed. He had that kind of tone. I envisioned huge piles of Elf Hotel flying off the belt, taking down everyone in sight. I had seen pictures of Elf Hotel. It had sharp candy cane spears that could easily impale someone. And if anyone was ever going to be killed by an Elf Hotel, it would be my parents. They've been taken into custody, he said. They're in jail. Who's in jail, I asked, because I'm not super quite on the uptake, and because it was much easier for me to envision my parents being taken down by a flying elf hotel than it was to think of them being taken into handcuffs. Sam just looked at me and waited for me to catch up on my own. There was another fight when the pieces came out this morning, he explained after a pause. An argument about who was holding spots in line. Your parents weren't part of it, but they didn't disperse when the police told them to. They got hauled in with the others. 5 people have been booked. It's all over the news. I felt my legs starting to wobble. So I sat down on the sofa. Why didn't they call, I asked. One phone call, he said. They called me because they thought I could get them out, which I can't. What do you mean you can't? The idea that Sam couldn't bust my parents out of the country clink was ridiculous. It was like hearing a pilot come over the intercom and say, "Hey everyone, I just remembered. I'm no good at landing, so I'm just going to keep flying around until someone has a better idea." I did my best, Sam went on, but the judge isn't budging. He's sick of these flobby problems, so he's making an example of them all. Your parents instructed me to take you to the train station. I only have an hour. Then I have to be back for hot cookies and sing along at 5. How quickly can you pack? This was delivered in the same gravelly tone of voice that Sam probably used when pounding people on the stand about why they were running from the scene covered in blood. He didn't look happy that this task had been foisted on him on Christmas Eve. Still, a little touch of Oprah would have helped. Pack train station, what? You're going to Florida to stay with your grandparents, he said. Couldn't get a flight. They're being canceled all over the place because of the storm. What storm? Jubilee, Sam said very slowly, having concluded that I was that I was the least aware person on the planet. We're about to have the biggest storm in 50 years. My brain wasn't working right. None of this was going in. I can't go. I said, I'm supposed to see Noah tonight. And Christmas. What about Christmas? Sam shrugged, as if to say that Christmas was beyond his control and there was nothing the legal system could do about it. But why can't I just stay here? This is crazy. Your parents don't want you alone for 2 days over the holiday. I can't go to Noah's. I have to go to Noah's. Look, he said. It's all arranged. We can't reach your parents now. They're being processed. I bought your ticket and I don't have a lot of time. You're going to pack now, Jubilee. I turned and looked at the twinkling little cityscape next to me. I couldn't see the shadows of the doomed elves as I worked away Jubilee Hall. The warm glow of Miss Muggin's cake shop, the slow but merry process of the Elves Express around the little expanse of track. The only thing I could think to ask was, but what about the village? Ended page 12. Page 13. I never actually been on a train before. It was taller than I imagined, with second-story windows that I guessed were the sleeping cars. Inside, it was dimly lit, and most of the people stuffed in there looked catonic. I expected the train to steam and chug and shoot off like a rocket, because I watched a lot of cartoons in my misspent youth, and that's how cartoon trains worked. This train glided off indifferently, as if it had gotten bored with standing around. Naturally, I called Noah the moment we set off. This was a slight violation of the I'm going to be slammed until 6, so I'll just see you at the party, no call policy. But never have circumstances been more understandable. When he answered, there was a cheerful clamor in the background. I could hear carols and the clinking of dishes, which was a depressing contrast to the claustrophobic muffle of the train. Lee, he said, kind of a bad time. See you in an hour. He made a little grunt. It sounded like he was lifting something heavy, probably one of the freakishly large hams his mother always managed to get her hands on for the smorgasbord. I presume she gets them from some kind of experimental farm where the pigs are treated with lasers and super drugs until they are 30 feet long. That's the thing, I said. I'm not coming. What do you mean you're not coming? What's wrong? I explained the parent in jail, me on a train in the storm, life not really going as planned situation as best as I could. I tried to keep it light, like I found it funny, mostly to keep myself from sobbing on a dark train of stupefied strangers. Another grunt. It sounded like he was shifting something around. It'll be fine, he said after a moment. Sam's taking care of it, right? Well, if you mean not getting them out of jail, then yes, he doesn't even seem worried. It's probably just some county jail, he replied. It won't be bad. And if Sam's not worried, it'll be okay. I'm sorry this happened, but I'll see you in a day or two. Yes, but it's Christmas, I said. My voice got thick, and I choked back a tear. He gave me a moment. I know this is hardly, he said after a pause, but it will be fine. It will. This is just one of those things. I knew he was trying to calm me down and generally console me, but still, one of those things. This was not one of those things. One of those things is your car breaking down, or getting the stomach flu, or your faulty holiday lights sending out a spark and burning down your hedge. I said as much as he sighed, realizing I was right. Then he grunted again. What's the matter? I asked through a sniff. I'm holding a huge ham, he said. I'm going to have to go in a minute. Look, I'll do another Christmas when you get back, I promise. We'll find some time. Don't worry. Call me when you get there, okay? I promised I wouldn't, and he hung up and went off with his ham. I stared at the now silent phone. Sometimes, because I dated Noah, I empathized with people who are married to politicians. You can tell they have their own lives, but because they love the person they are with, they end up pulled into the juggernaut, and pretty soon they're waving and smiling blankly for the camera with balloons falling on their heads and staff members knocking them out of the way to get to the all important significant other who is perfect. I know no one is perfect, that behind every facade of perfection is a withering mess of subterfuge and secret sorrows, but even taking that into account, Noah was pretty much perfect. I never heard anyone say a bad word about him. His status was an unquestioned as gravity. By making me his girlfriend, he demonstrated his belief in me, and had picked up on his conviction. I stood straighter. I felt more confident, more consistently positive, more important. He liked being seen with me, therefore I liked being seen with me, if that makes any sense. So yes, his overcommittedness was a pain sometimes, but I understood. When you have to take a big ham to your mom's for when you have to take a big ham to your mom, for instance, because 60 people are going to descend on your house for smorgasbord, it just has to be done. The rough must be taken with the smooth. I took out my iPod and used the remaining power to flick through some photos of him. Then the power died. I felt so alone on that train, a weird, unnatural kind of alone that bore into me. It was a feeling just beyond fear and somewhere to the left of sadness. Tired, but not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. It was dark and gloomy, and yet it didn't seem that things would get any better if the lights were turned up. If anything, I would be able to get a much better look at my unpleasant situation. I thought about calling my grandparents. They already knew I was coming. Sam told me he had called them. They would have been happy to talk to me, but I wasn't feeling up to it. My grandparents are great people, but they are easily rattled. Like if the grocery store sells out of the frozen pizza or soup they advertise in the circular, and they've gone to the store just for that, they'll stand there debating their next move for a half an hour. If I called them, every aspect of my visit would have to be discussed to the smallest detail. What blanket would I need? Did I still eat crackers? Should Grandpa get more shampoo? It was always sweet, but a little too much for my mind at the moment. I like to think I am a problem solver. I would distract myself out of the funk. I dug into my bag to see what I had managed to collect. As I rushed out of the house, I discovered I was woefully unprepared for the trip ahead of me. I had grabbed the bare essentials, some underwear, jeans, 2 sweaters, a few shirts, my glasses, my iPod was out of power. My iPod was out of power. I had just one book with me. It was Northanger Abbey, part of my winter break reading list for English. It was good, but not exactly what you want when you're feeling when you're feeling the creeping hand of doom. So for about 2 hours, I just looked out the window as the sun set. The candy-colored pink sky turned to silver, and the first snow began to fall. I knew it was beautiful, but knowing something is beautiful and caring about it are two very different things. And I didn't care. The snow got harder and faster until it filled the view, and there was nothing left but white. It came from all directions at once, even blowing up and underneath. Watching it made me dizzy and a little ill. People were coming down the aisle with boxes of food, chips, and soda, and pre-wrapped sandwiches. Clearly there was a food source somewhere on this train. Sam had shoved $50 in my hand back at the station, all 50 of which would be extracted from my parents once they were breathing free air again. There was nothing else to do, so I got up and made my way back to the snack car, where I was promptly informed that they were out of everything except some floppy microwave pizza discs, 2 muffins, a few candy bars, a pack of nuts, and some sad-looking fruit. I wanted to compliment them on being so well prepared for the holiday rush, but the guy working the counter looked really beaten. He didn't need my sarcasm. I bought a pizza disc, 2 candy bars, the muffins, the nuts, and hot chocolate. It seemed smart to stock up a bit for the rest of the trip if things were going that fast. I stuffed a $5 bill into his cup and he nodded his thanks. I took one of the empty seats at the table, braced to the wall. The train was shaking a lot now. Even as we slowed, the wind was smacking us from either side. I left the pizza untouched and burned my lips on the hot chocolate. It was the most action they were going to get after all. Mind if I sit here? A voice asked. I looked up to find an exceptionally beautiful guy standing over me again. I noticed, and again, I didn't really care. But he did make more of an impact than the snow. His hair was as dark as mine, meaning it was black. It was longer than mine, though. Mine only goes just past my chin. He was pulled back in a ponytail. He looked Native American with high cheekbones. The thin denim jacket he was wearing wasn't nearly enough protection against the weather. There was something in his eyes, though, that really struck a chord. He looked troubled, like he was having a hard time keeping them open. He had just gotten himself a cup of coffee, which he was clutching kind of intently. Sure, I said. He kept his head down when he sat, but I noticed him glancing at all the food I had in the box. Something told me that he was a lot hungrier than me. Have some, I said. I was just getting stuff before they sold out. I'm not even that hungry. I haven't touched this pizza at all. There was a moment of resistance, but I pushed it forward. I realized it looked like a pizza coaster, I added. It was all they had, really. Take it. He smiled a little bit. I'm Jeb, he said. I'm Julie, I answered. I wasn't in the mood to go through the Jubilee. Your name is Jubilee? Tell me, what do you use for your routine? Baby oil or some kind of nut oil? And does someone wipe down the pole after each use? Conversation. Everything I explained to you in the beginning. Most people call me Julie. Noah called me Lee. Where are you headed? He asked. I'm going to end right there because this is 11 minutes. So, part 2. Check it out. Ended on page 20. Check out the continuation.
Peter Pan, that's what they call me. I promise that you're not